tell us about that transition from Acrobat to Aerialist and how that came about.
Well, so like I said, I was competing for 4 years as a power tumbler, which is just the tumbling portion of gymnastics. And then I was in no sports for about 5 years, got out of shape, totally gained a little weight, got a little chunky. And then I moved to Orlando, Florida from Southern Illinois when I was 19, started working at Disney World, met a guy, Nate, who trained me and taught me how to be an aerialist.
Wow.
And refined my tumbling technique. And then before I knew it, we had a trampoline act together, a competitive trampoline act, and an aerial act. And then I was on tour with Britney Spears within like a year and a half of my career,
Wow.
which was insane, and toured with her all over North America and Australia. And then that really launched my performing career and has taken me to so many countries. And I'm just so beyond blessed that I get to do what really lights my heart up and just energizes me.
So how did you hear about the Dallas Urban Youth Summit?
They reached out to me through my team. I think they'd either seen me on TV or, one of the multiple things, or maybe People Magazine.
You're very popular, yeah.
And it just seemed like a perfect, beautiful fit. I love the arts, and of course I love the kids, so it's awesome.
Yeah, and so you just finished up a chat in there, talking to about 800 kids today. Mm-hmm. And what did it feel like? What was the crowd energy?
Yeah, kids sometimes can be the hardest audience, and I don't just mean hard because, I'm not a speaker that's like, oh, I'm so awesome because of how the audience reacted. That's not my why for why I speak. Uh-huh. But it's amazing because, afterward, when I meet the kids, that's why it's so important to take the pictures with them because, number one, that's what they love. They love having the selfies. They love having the Insta posts.
Uh-huh. Oh, yes.
They love that, right? And I love it because I get to meet them. And when you hear an 8th grader tell you that you changed their life or you inspired them, that's crazy.
It's a big deal.
And amazing. And it's a big deal.
And for our listeners, she had a line that was out the door. They were just rounding the house to see her and take a photo with her. So very excited after her speech and jazzed up to get to meet her.
So I wanted to ask, speaking you've obviously spoken here. You've spoken in other places, though, correct? This isn't the only place.
Oh, sure. You mean within Dallas? Or?
I just mean around
the
the world.
You're
obviously,
time to Dallas?
you're a very geographic individual. I'm just curious about your travels.
Oh, yeah, no. I speak all over the world.
Wow.
And perform.
Yeah.
And that's why I've been to so many countries. So every time I've been to a different country, it's been either to speak or perform or both.
All right, and what's the heart of your message that you tell these kids? What do you want them to walk away from it with?
Well, I'm a big believer in getting a point and a message across through sharing because it's very non-threatening. It's very easily digestible, and I'm not trying to come up on the stage like an expert. I want to share. My story was given to me because it's meant to be shared. My life is meant to be shared. And that is in speaking, that is in performing, that is in interviewing, that's in all forms of any kind of communication. And so my speech is always different because my audience is always different. Mm-hmm. And I make sure that I'm always speaking from the heart. I always speak about my life. But one thing consistent is I always make sure I let people know that their gifts and talents and abilities that are for them are not only unique, but they have power, and they have equal power, and that is to change someone's life. And that is one of the most powerful things that I could ever hopefully give to someone to take away.
And talk about overcoming obstacles. You've obviously faced some obstacles of your own in your life, but then even now in your career as an aerialist and an acrobat, that takes a lot of bravery to get up that high and do those stunts. And so really that's like a theme that's carried you through your life. And so is it easy to talk about? Does it ever get easier to explain your message and your personal
I think
voyage?
It always evolves because we're always evolving. Hopefully we should be.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I'm always evolving. I want to be changing and progressing and moving forward. And things in my life always change, which is great because then it makes my speeches always a bit different. And my experiences are going to be different. Each country I go to, each experience I have, it just shapes and it molds you. It changes. One of the biggest values in my life I have is the fact that I've been able to travel so much. It's just changed my life. Mm-hmm. It changes my perspective. And so I can bring that to every speech as well. And, with performing, it changed me too. There's a mental toughness. There's, the fact that nobody wanted to hire me in the beginning because no one like myself has ever performed in that way. So everybody was afraid of how people would react.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But, I just kind of always knew. I just knew that people would eventually get it. And they did.
So when you get into the motivational speaking business, I'm curious, who are some of the, I know you mentioned your parents, of course, who are some of the people in your life or things in your life that have really motivated you to get to where you are today?
I think when I travel and I just see people, like I was on a pretty small island in Thailand last year, almost exactly a year ago.
Wow.
And they're living in huts and thatched roofs and, dirt floors. There's really no paved anything. And they're so happy. They're so happy. And they're serving you and they're so hospitable. And they're so excited to see you. And they're so excited for you to come in their restaurant. And I'm like, I'm excited because you're excited.
Well, yeah.
And you're making me motivated. And like, those are the things that shape and mold you. You can't buy that.
Yeah. And you're here talking today to 8th graders. What was your 8th grade experience like? I mean, was that a tough time in your life as well? I know personally, 8th grade, those were tough years. I mean, it's a time of transition. And so tell us what that experience was like for you.
I think 8th grade in particular for me was actually a really good year. It was a really awesome, I did feel like I was kind of on top of the world, because in 8th grade you feel like that.
Sure.
I mean, you're at the top of everyone and you just got your groove. And I don't know, I loved 8th grade and I had a really awesome boyfriend. So it was just one of those on top of the world moments. And I think high school was fun. But that's where you kind of start to feel what feeling like an adult feels like. So everything starts to get a little bit harder when you get a little bit older. And luckily, I had great people in my school, and I had my family and stuff like that. But honestly, 8th grade was a pretty awesome year for me. I'm not gonna lie.
So I can understand your drive towards wanting to do more and wanting to explore sports, which is awesome. Yeah. Why did you get into the particular sports that you've been into?
I always just joke and say I just came out an athlete because I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, I've been drawn to being outdoors, being active, being physically fit, all that since I was a kid. And I just was, in particular drawn to all the sports, softball, basketball, volleyball, power tumbling. I'd say my top 2 would be volleyball and tumbling. And then, for 9 years as an adult, the acrobatic world, the aerial world, and really drawn to being an aerialist because of how artistic and beautiful, and you just get to share emotions on stage, and it's become therapeutic for me.
Now, was the art something that was really big for you when you were a young adult?
No, that's the thing. I was always an artist at my heart, but I didn't know what that meant because where I grew up, it was all farmers and blue collar. I never saw a performing artist. I didn't have that example because I didn't grow up in a city. I didn't grow up anywhere near a city. And I didn't know why I felt differently, why I had these passions, why I loved these little things just the way they were, why I was popular, but I wasn't necessarily like everyone else. There was just these differences, and it caused a lot of frustration because I didn't know how to articulate it then. And now I'm like, I was just an artist. That's all it was.
Yeah. And so you mentioned you have a book coming out.
I have a book. It came out.
It's
out.
Yeah,
it's out.
Tell us about your book and what it's about.
Well, the name is Everything is Possible, and it's all about my life, but it's not to call it a memoir, I think, would be cutting it short. It's a hybrid. It's a memoir. It talks about my faith. It's got motivation. I talk about fitness, adoption, performing, traveling. There's little motivational kicks in every chapter. So it's really unique and fun, and the design of the pictures are laid out very artistically. And, it's a unique hybrid, and I'm really proud of it.
What would you say are some of the main drivers for you today?
My faith, my family, and my purpose. My purpose is huge. That purpose is what drives me, and that's obviously intertwined with my faith. But my purpose and my destiny, that's why I do what I do. I know that I was born this way for a purpose and on purpose. So everything I do, whether it's speaking, an interview, performing, yada, 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 it's so that it can change someone's life. It can touch somebody. That's the motivation behind it. I can honestly tell you and sleep good at night and say that my motives are not rooted in anything that's egotistical or just about myself. I really do understand why I'm here and what I'm doing. The why behind it is pure.
So I got to ask, we only have about a minute and a half left, so I'm curious. In the big wide world of Jen Bricker, what's next?
Well, I definitely am still performing, still speaking, still traveling. I think I'm going to have a couple more books. and I want to eventually get married, have kids.
Yeah.
Yep, on the personal note, and really want to just break into the beauty and fitness industry and just turn things upside down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think anything can stop you. Nothing has so far.
Thank you.
Where can people find out more about you?
JenBricker.com, any social media, Jen Bricker, easy to find me everywhere.
All right.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. I know the students really enjoyed your performance, and it's so great to finally meet you in person and have you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. We'll be right back.
More inspirational stories of youth empowerment from the Urban Youth Summit around the arts right after this on RNCN.